Boys and girls, we're back. It's draft season for most of us, at least. Nobody cares about the Rams or the Bengals. So let's talk to Kent Swanson from KC Sports Network. Boys and girls, let's go. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it is draft season. Packers are not getting ready for the Super Bowl, nor are the Kansas City Chiefs, which I feel like I have to throw that in there due to our company right now. So it's time for the Gold Zone, which is an NFL draft-related show because it's draft season. Now, the draft could be very interesting, like it always is, but it could be more interesting for the Packers depending on where they're picking. Who knows? Maybe a quarterback gets traded, and that makes things a little more higher up in the draft order. But welcome to the show, everybody. I'm your host. I'm Jacob Westendorf, and you can follow everything we do here at Game On WI on Twitter. I'm joined by my co-host, my partner in crime. We even share a name, and who knows what else we'll share by the end of this show. Jacob Morley. Jacob, it's like a family affair at this point. I feel like I've seen you every day this week.
Yeah, with the new lineup over at Pack-A-Day, it's been fun to talk to you on Mondays. Now we'll talk a little draft on Wednesdays as well. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really excited to be back here live on Game On Wisconsin at the Gold Zone, and got to welcome my good pal Kent Swanson here to the show, but also got to welcome you to the club. Welcome to the club of having an elite quarterback, all world, all talent, pee down his leg in the playoffs. How do you feel over there?
Pain. I mean, yeah, like if something like this was gonna happen before we do it, and it feels good to be, I can relate to you better now. I think, Jake. We've got. I mean, Ken, you could probably the 2014 NFC Championship game. We were living together at that time, right? Mm-hmm. Yep.
And watched it at the Westerfield houses back in Olathe, Kansas. And after that game, there's a dumpy little lake by us, and we had people over at the house, and I'm pretty sure I just got up and left, and I just had to go away, and I legit just took my car out to the lake, and I just sat out there. Just in silence. It just at Olathe Lake, just quietly, and there's been a few more games like that since, and it's tough. Pain is right, and sometimes at the hands of the quarterback and the quarterback position, Kent. But I don't know if the good people know this, but Kent is the quarterback whisperer for us over at the KC Sports Network, and we do have the KC Draft Guide coming out this year. Kent's always on top of the quarterback, so we're super excited to have you here today, buddy.
Dude, yeah, let's talk about all these wonderful quarterbacks in this class. This is just an exciting group, right?
Not a great time to need a quarterback, is it?
No. And last year we had Kent on, and it's Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson and Justin Fields and Mac Jones and Trey Lance. And this year it's Matt Corral, Malik Willis, Desmond Ritter. Yeah, maybe it'll turn out okay.
Oh,
I don't know.
I think all five of those guys would be QB1 in this class, right? Even McCorkle. And Ken, you were not very high on Mac McCorkle Jones last year. Or do you know off the top of your head where he would fit in this year's class?
Well, my early initial grade on Kenny Pickett's a little higher than Mac Jones, but I think that's going to change too. Mac's right there with all these guys where I had Mac last year. Some of these guys that we're talking about, I think they're all kind of in that same kind of range cluster where I had them relative to last year's, Mac. But yeah, most of those guys are QB1 in this class, and most of them by a large margin, I think.
Yeah. Now I'm trying to remember because we did this last year, and the question we had was who's QB1 besides Trevor Lawrence, because that was everyone's quarterback one forever. Some people talked themselves into Kyle Wilson by the end of the Zach Wilson. I just did the Peter Bukowski thing. I just did the Bukowski thing. Zach Wilson. Some people talked them into themselves. Was Zach your number two, or did you have somebody else?
So I think Zach wound up QB2 in the draft guide that we did, but I think he wound up being my QB3, and Justin Fields wound up being QB2 for me personally, but it was close. Like, I really liked Zach Wilson. I really liked Justin Fields. Trevor Lawrence, obviously QB1. Those two guys kind of went back and forth in both the guide and my personal grades. I think I wound up with Fields as number 2, if I remember correctly.
Okay, so we went that route on that. We'll get to some other quarterback questions. The other quarterback question I have, kind of in the mold of Jake Morley: are the Kansas City Chiefs wasting Patrick Mahomes' prime?
Oh man!
Welcome to the club, baby.
Are you fully prepared for all those stupid questions that are bound to come your way?
Yeah, they already are. There's all kinds of stuff, and there's been all kinds of narratives that have been pushed this year, and you know what? The Chiefs didn't get it done. Mahomes played terrible in the second half, and now we're gonna have to endure it all offseason. This is probably new for us because Mahomes really wasn't the reason. I mean, he was doing everything he can. He's literally throwing the ball perpendicular to the ground last Super Bowl, last season. So no one was really blaming Mahomes for last year's performance. This year, he's open to a ton of criticism. I don't know how y'all deal with it. And I'm not this is just on-field stuff. I don't have to deal with some of the other stuff y'all are having to deal with the off-field.
Word.
Well, let's get to that right now. So I'm going to put you in Brian Gutekunst's chair. Obviously, Jordan Love was your first-round pick a couple years ago. Your current starting quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, then kind of raised hell and said, I want out of here. You didn't do that. He responds by likely winning his second consecutive MVP. But your team falls short again in the postseason. And you're at kind of a breaking point in terms of, do you keep shoving money into the future, or do you bring everybody back and starting that way with Aaron Rodgers? If you are Brian Gutekunst, are you moving heaven and earth to make sure Aaron Rodgers stays? Or are you saying, nope, I drafted this guy, I'm going to be bold and move on and roll with him?
Man, I think you would have wished that Jordan Love did a little bit more in his little, little test run there. One of the Kansas City being the game, and obviously I think it was a little bit against the Saints. Is that right? You get to play a little bit against the Saints earlier in the year. Is that right?
Detroit later in the year.
Okay, yeah, I think I'd still roll with Rodgers. And I know there's a lot of drama there, but it does feel like on the outside looking in, some of the fragmentation of that relationship, some of the fractures in that relationship got repaired a little bit. Maybe not entirely, but I think you got to roll with that guy and see what happens. But I don't think there's a good answer either. Honestly, that sounds weird. I don't know if there's a good answer for y'all, and that's what's so weird about this situation.
So my take has been this, and Jake, I'll let you give yours here in just a second too. So just so we kind of get this out of the way between now and draft day, my take has been that I would cut the cord. I'm ready to move on. I don't even like Jordan Love. I didn't like him in that class. I don't care about Aaron Rodgers' feelings when they took him, nothing like that. I just didn't like the prospect. So I wasn't thrilled when they took him from that side of things. But kind of like when Favre was here, at a certain point, you knew how that movie was going to end. With Favre, it was a multi-interception meltdown. Maybe he throws to a double-covered receiver with 3 other guys wide open, kind of similar to the way Aaron Rodgers' last game just kind of went. With Rodgers, it's not the multi-interception meltdown, but it's just bad football. He plays a bad game at quarterback, and it doesn't look as terrible from the box score standpoint because he completes over 60-some-odd% of his passes. Didn't throw a touchdown this time around, but usually throws a touchdown or 2 and doesn't turn the ball over. But I would move on. I would take your bounty. Aaron Rodgers is, the guy who dragged your organization through the mud the entire offseason, whined to get heaven and earth moved for him. Then they did, and then he's the choker. I know everybody's pointing to special teams as the reason Green Bay lost, but
it's pretty bad.
It was. I'm not saying it wasn't. However, if Rodgers plays a B- game, Green Bay wins that game by 2 scores.
If he plays a C- game, they win that game. They win.
Rodgers handed in a D-, and the only reason it wasn't an F is because he didn't turn the ball over. He was horrible. And I would say if you're the Packers, instead of just shoving all this money out for a game that's you're not gonna get to, roll with Jordan Love, get all them picks. If Jordan Love stinks, then you have the ammo to move up and get Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, whoever those guys are in the 2023 class. That's what I would do. However, the Packers have been very vocal. They're not going to do that. So any analysis like that is almost a moot point at this point. So Jake, You love
Well,
Jordan Love. What would you do?
I do love Jordan Love, but I think the worst thing that Jordan Love could do is just be okay, right? Like either he needs to come in and be very good, or he needs to stink, and they need to move on from him quick. But in any case, I'm with you guys from a fan standpoint. I'm sick of it. So like I'm ready for whatever's next. But from a franchise perspective, like they're not going to do that. Because they're going to look at this guy who's won back-to-back MVPs and say, this guy still gives us the best chance to win a Super Bowl. This guy still gives us the best chance to put butts in seats. And ultimately, that is probably what they care about just as much as winning Super Bowls, which is tough to kind of eat as a fan. But like that's the bottom line. And Green Bay is a small market team. They need to sell that thing out. And they will. Don't get me wrong, they will. They'll sell that thing out if Kent Swanson was playing quarterback for 17 weeks for the Green Bay Packers. There would be butts and seats. But
Jake, you've seen me play, bro.
Hey.
I might trust you in a January playoff game more than I do Aaron Rodgers.
You can turn around and hand the ball off to Adrian Dillon and
I could throw to the flat.
Maybe
the undraftable.
Maybe 10 years ago. But like so that's the thing, and I think with the Jordan Love route is obviously it is appealing because it's going to come with the King's ransom, right? You're going to have all the picks and capital that you would get from Rodgers, and this is a draft show, so we're all kind of draft nerds anyways. And the thought of your team having multiple first-round draft picks for the next couple of years is fun. It is a lot of fun, and especially if Jordan Love would hit, your window is wide open with these picks. And Gutekunst has proven he hits on these high picks. He's got a very good track record of top 100 picks. After that, that's another conversation. But you get those high picks, and it could be a lot of fun in Green Bay. But if I was a betting man, I'd bet the house on Rodgers being back in Green Bay.
And maybe we'll actually get Rodgers versus Mahomes, which somehow the teams have played twice in the last 3 years, and it hasn't happened.
Yeah.
And they've had a chance to play in conference title games. And the Packers, per usual, when it comes to the AFC quarterback star being on the other side, didn't hold up their end of the bargain. So maybe we'll get Rodgers versus Mahomes one of these days.
No State Farm Bowl yet. Just like State Farm is furious.
Oh, God, there's so much. I know somebody who worked for State Farm. They said they had so much marketing that they had to just toss in the shredder because
it was supposed to come to Kansas City, and they had like the Jake from State Farm was in KC to do events and stuff for this game that they were supposed to play between each other, and then Rodgers missed it. But like they had events in Kansas City at State Farm ready for this game, and then Rodgers misses it. It was insane how much stuff they had ready for this game.
Probably would have been a much better game if Aaron Rodgers had played. But I digress. We've talked enough about the current quarterback. Let's talk about some of these guys. So I want to start here. QB1 this year's a little different, so I want to get your guys' take on this. Kent, let me start with you. Who is the best quarterback in this year's class?
Oh,
that's a great omen.
There is
we talked about this in the DMs today, so I'm pretty. I probably could just recite what Kent's going to say, but go ahead, Kent.
I've been all over the place, especially coming out of the Senior Bowl. The highest grade I had going into the Senior Bowl was Kenny Pickett, followed by Matt Corral, Desmond Ritter, Malik Willis, Sam Howell. That was my top 5. I don't know, man. I Desmond Ritter's coming up a little bit for me, even though I'm not high on him. Like that's kind of weird. It's a weird year. I'm starting to like Desmond Ritter a little bit more. I'm not ready to commit to anyone though. I'm not. Let me put it this way. I'm not ready to commit to any of these. I don't think any team should be ready to commit to any of these guys. So you could make an argument for 4 different guys as QB1 in this class. Right now, Desmond Ritter's creeping up for me. Kenny Pickett's right up there too, even though I know some people just hate Kenny Pickett.
I'll talk a little bit about Desmond Ritter here in just a little bit. But yeah, Jake, who's your number 1 quarterback going into this offseason?
I mean, the way I look at it in this year's draft class is I think all these guys are backups in the NFL. So, inexplicably, one of these guys will hit. Like the law of averages say, like one of these guys will be a good starter in the NFL.
Unless this is the 2013 draft, which there was nobody, but like every year has at least one guy except for the
Geno draft.
Geno,
was it
EJ Manuel?
Wasn't Teddy in that draft?
No, Teddy was 2014 because that was the year Green Bay got Clinton Dix. But yeah, 2013. That's the year the Chiefs had the number 1 pick.
Yeah, they took Eric Fisher.
They took Eric Fisher.
The one year doesn't have the one year there's not a good quarterback. Like I think you're sandwiched between like Andrew Luck and maybe Cam Newton. Or
2014 would have been Blake Bortles, so it didn't get much better.
Oh yeah,
Well,
you're right.
Going back to that 2013 class, so I do think it is similar to this class in the sense of we're talking ourselves into guys, like saying like, guys, go in the top 15. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. And props to the NFL for that year. Like it didn't really happen. There's like
EJ Manuel. That was it.
Yeah. And EJ. And so that is 100% why Malik Willis is my QB1. Because why was EJ Manuel a top 20 pick? Tools. That's all he had. None of those guys. I think the NFL saw those guys as backup level players, which a lot of them turned out to be, and they were right. And they saw EJ Manuel, who was, coming off the heels of Cam Newton, a big athletic quarterback, huge arm, just physically gifted. And you look at Malik Willis, and I think if any of these guys reach their potential, I think Malik Willis's potential reached is a Super Bowl winning quarterback, right? Like he has all the intangibles. He has got a hose for an arm. He's got the feet. He's got, the athleticism. Does he miss wide open guys? Bad. Yeah, he does. Can you question his ability to see the field? Yeah, you can. But, I think the NFL is going to talk themselves into basically saying, well, he's only here in his development because he went to Liberty. And because he wasn't getting the same type of coaching as the Pittsburgh guy, the Cincinnati guy, the UNC guy. So we think we can bring this guy into our program and get him to, whatever level it's going to be. And I pray to God the Detroit Lions take him number 2 overall.
I just want that because I don't want him to take Aiden Hutchinson. But yeah, go ahead, Ken.
Well, I just think it's interesting. It's, if you're going to go if you're going to take a quarterback in the first round, you need to go all in on him. You need to you need to go and build something for him, build something around him. You've got to give him a fighting chance. I don't think Matt Nagy did a good job, for instance, with Justin Fields last year of giving him a really good chance of going all in with him and trying to build an offense to his skill sets. I think that's why some of these talents in the situation is so crucial. Malik Willis is probably the guy from a tools perspective you can go most likely to go all in with, right? Because I think all these other guys, they have some physical abilities, they have some tools and stuff, but I think you could probably build an offense around the strengths of Malik Willis and develop him. Whereas some of these other guys, I don't think the ceiling's nearly as high. I don't think their skill sets are anything remarkable that you want to build an offensive game plan around their skill sets. And so, I get the appeal of Malik Willis, but there's also just at the same time, there's just a lot of question marks for me that make me question whether I want to do that. And that's why I say I don't look at this group, and even Malik Willis with all the skills he has and talents he has, I'm not excited about going all in on him. It'd be fascinating to see if anybody will. He's
going to get people fired.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Right.
I think our buddy Zach Hicks said it today too, when we were talking about this, if he goes top 10, top 15, he has more bust potential than any quarterback in the last 5-10 years. I mean,
that's what happened in Buffalo, right? They took EJ Manuel. Those guys all got fired. That's just.
Was that Doug Whaley?
Doug Whaley. It was Doug Whaley, who he's a good friend of our friend Tyler Dunn. So I've got some love for Doug Whaley for sure. But you guys are right in terms of going all in on your quarterback. And that's something that could get interesting with Green Bay and Jordan Love, because there are going to be holdovers from the Aaron Rodgers era, if you will. Something that I was told a while ago that kind of stuck with me was somebody who worked closely with the Eagles. When Nick Foles won the Super Bowl, it was like the best thing that's ever happened to the Eagles, obviously, and also kind of a down thing for Carson Wentz, because then what you had was in the locker room, you have Foles guys and you have Wentz guys. And like you mentioned, Kent, you got to have everybody. That's not just your organization, like from a front office and coaching standpoint. The players got to buy into this dude too. And when you've got Alshon Jeffrey, who was very subtweetingly vocal about how he would prefer Nick Foles be the quarterback, that makes for a problem. And that makes for a problem when you get a guy in the first round. The reason I brought up Jordan Love is Green Bay could face some of that turmoil next year if they choose to move on from Rodgers, which we've kind of established that they won't. But the point I'm asking now is, you guys are talking about your quarterback ones in this class. I've heard some people say that Jordan Love would be towards the top of this class. Kent, do you agree with that assessment, that he would be QB1 if he were coming out this year?
Overwhelmingly QB1.
Wow.
I think he'd go top 10. I think he would be a no-brainer top 10 investment. Some team would bet on him. And I get why. I think his sample size in college was better than any of the guys that we're talking about, matched with his physical abilities. Now, this is hindsight looking at staring at the draft, when we were walking in. I don't, I think he's still got a ways to go developmentally, and I think you kind of saw that a little bit this year. His performance against the Chiefs was very underwhelming to me. Steve Spagnuolo is a very tough matchup for a young quarterback, but I think physically, the skill set, the ability that he possessed, that he showed in college, is much more impressive and in the body of work than any of these guys. So yeah, I think a team wouldn't have as hard of a time talking themselves into he's probably kind of on the bottom end of that threshold of guys that you're willing to maybe go all in on, and I could see a team in the top 10 taking him coming out if they had gotten the opportunity to in this particular draft, because it's market adjusted for sure, because I think this group stinks.
Yeah. Well, I think what's really interesting to look at is the thing that we kind of say in Green Bay is like, whatever you thought about Jordan Love on draft night is probably what you think about him now, because we've seen him play for 6 quarters. It's been like, yes, you would have loved to have seen him come out and play really well against the Chiefs, like all the, Aaron Rodgers versus Dallas when he got in year 3, and everyone was like, oh, this is a dude. Jordan Love did not do that. He did some stuff that I think you can say, like, if you're a fan of his, like, well, he went where he was supposed to with the ball more often than not. That's encouraging, because that's something that we had big questions about coming out. But ultimately, the sample size of 6 quarters just is not enough to really say definitively, yep, told you he sucks, or yep, told you he's good. So I wonder how the NFL views him in that way. Like someone brought up Pittsburgh I think it's interesting to look at Pittsburgh and say, like, okay, they need a young quarterback in Pittsburgh. And if Green Bay is willing to re-up with Rodgers for 2 or 3 years, I'd move Love, right? I would move him in. Like, would Pittsburgh be more willing to give up a late day 2 pick on a Jordan Love versus gambling on a guy like Malik Willis, in the first round? So, like, I just think it's the fact that this year's quarterback crop is so underwhelming makes that even more interesting. Like, would a team like that rather say, like, hey, we're going to hold on to our capital, and you know what, if we bring in Jordan Love for a 3rd round pick and he sucks, that's still bad on the Packers. Like, that was dumb that they took him in the 1st round. We just wanted to kick the tires, and he ain't any good. And we'll move on immediately.
Hey, do you think Jordan Love's presence helped fuel Aaron Rodgers' performance?
I do. 100%. So that's where it was worth the pick for Green Bay. That's where that discussion comes in.
Back-to-back MVPs and really disappointing playoff exits.
13 wins, all that good stuff.
But
before that, Jake, we've talked about this a bunch too. It was bad, and there were questions as to whether this dude was done. So
that's why they took him. That's why they took him. It looked like he was about done.
And it certainly was a fair point. Aaron Rodgers is December of 2019, save for the playoff game against Seattle where he was pretty good. Otherwise, playoff game against San Francisco wasn't good. And basically any game they played in December that year, save for the Giants game in the snow, was not good. He was not good throughout the course of that month. So it's tough to go, but I agree with Kent. There's no way that the guy who takes every perceived slight ever didn't use that as I'm done. I'll show you guys kind of thing. So absolutely worth that
one
selection.
Name, to kind of piggyback off of what Kent's saying, he's talking about physical tools and just what they've been able to put on film. I think and Labo brought this up. Sam Howell, I think, is a guy that came into this season as someone that I think a lot of people really expected to, like, hey, let's see what he can do without all these weapons. Can he be the guy at UNC? And I mean, ultimately, he kind of fell on his face without those guys, I think. But I don't know, is he a junior or a senior? Is he a junior now?
I think he might have been an eligible junior for the Senior Bowl, if I remember correctly. But
But in
So
any
one of those
case,
guys.
I mean, 2 seasons ago, you look at him as like a potential, like this guy could be a late riser, you know, or a top 10 guy. And now I think a lot of people are looking at him in a similar light to Jordan Love when he's like, hey, he didn't have a very good year when all those guys left. So what do you do with this guy?
Well,
I think Jordan Love was more physically talented than him too, though.
yeah, and like, I mean, I'm not sure, Sam Howell's season was a little bit more up and down last year than we're probably giving it credit for too. Is like
Sure.
he came
Yep.
in his freshman year and people were really excited about him. There's a lot of optimism about him, the player, and it kind of feels like he started to kind of taper off a little bit, even last year as tape got out on him, losing some weapons over the course of time and all that stuff. So, I came in with some cautious optimism about Howell coming into the year. I was a guy that was really like, this guy could wind up being QB1. I think I probably even said that at some point. But I don't know, man. He's in that cluster for me. He's in that big bunch for me personally too, with the 5 guys that are pretty close in grades for me. All
here's the
third
last
round
question.
grades, I believe, too, by the way.
Yeah,
I think I
it's
gave
tough.
third round grades to all these guys.
And a couple of them are going to be first round picks because that's just typically how that goes. So one more question for Kent before we let him get out of here. Again, you can follow him at Kent_Swanson and KC Sports Network. They have a really good draft guide that I have bought each of the last couple of years. So Mr. Morley, you're welcome. And it's really insightful.
I think we could get you one for free this year. Like, we could probably do that.
I would appreciate that if you know the guy who knows a guy or anything like that. I would very much appreciate that. So my last question that we have for you guys is, who's your favorite quarterback in this class, Kent?
My favorite quarterback in this class.
And that doesn't have to mean the best. It can be just like, this dude's fun to watch. I hope he's good. Something like that.
You want to know? It's the Bullet. No. It's actually, funnily, so I was at the Shrine Bowl last week. I got to watch the Chiefs season end in a
shout out
in a
Owen
Chiefs,
Reese.
Yeah. Hey, I hung out with Owen all week.
Oh, like, Owen's my guy, man. That's
Owen.
He'll be on the show for offensive linemen. So when we talk about real football players.
Yeah, seriously. He's the best. We hung out a lot when we were at the Shrine Bowl because he's working at the Shrine Bowl. So my favorite quarterback probably is EJ Perry out of Brown, who I believe wound up being the MVP of the Shrine game. And I don't have high expectations for him at all. I had zero expectations before we got to Vegas, and so he's a fun prospect. He's a lot of fun. He's a freak athlete. I think he was one of the 5 fastest players at the Shrine Bowl with their tracking data. And when we talked to Eric Galco, who's the director of scouting there for the Shrine Bowl, before the game, they said, this dude's a freak. I don't think he's going to play safety in the NFL, but he has the athleticism to convert to another side of the football. He's a freak athlete. I didn't see a ton of that in his tape at Brown, but getting on boots on the ground, getting to watch him in that entire setting, that dude, he really impressed me. The athleticism, he threw the ball a lot better with more accuracy, more consistency during this process than he had kind of in college. So EJ Perry out of Brown, he's going to go like round 7 or 6, but he might be my favorite quarterback that I have in this class.
So when EJ Brown is the league MVP, you can talk to Kent Swanson about that first. And you can find Kent Swanson, like I mentioned, KC Sports Network at Kent_Swanson. Kent, always a pleasure. We'll have to have you back closer to the draft when it's something maybe a little more interesting than this quarterback class. But otherwise, tell the people, other than maybe what I said, where they can find you if they want to find anything like that and learn about another team wasting the prime of a Hall of Fame quarterback.
Yeah, we can all just lick our wounds all off season. Go to KC Sports Network's YouTube page, stuff going there, and we'll be talking a lot of just generic draft stuff there too. So there'll be a lot of fun stuff. You might even see Jake on there from time to time.
I was just going to ask, will I see that guy over there? I know he's done some draft day stuff. You were on that when they took Jordan Love, weren't you, Jake?
Yeah, I was. Bearcat told me. That's another point. We kind of have like anybody that watches the draft and you watch it with your buddies. I think people have unwritten rules and stuff. And like Kent and I and like Maddie and Craig, like guys that we do this stuff all together. Like we just kind of like don't tell each other. Like especially if it's our team, we do not say who it was. We let the like natural process go out. But our buddy Bearcat. He was just on like a Zoom call with us, and everyone's like sitting there like this, like waiting to see my reaction. It's quiet, and Bearcat just goes, "Oh yeah, they took the quarterback. Yep, Jordan Love." Like 2 minutes before the pick, we're all just like, "Oh, Oh,
Thanks, buddy.
man. Oh man, it was actually probably good though that it wasn't my live reaction. I had time to like digest that. 'Cause I was like, oh, they actually did. Wow. Yeah.
There was a lot, so you could catch these two guys on that show. Kent, always a pleasure. Appreciate you stopping in. We'll see you again.
Yep. Catch you later, guys.
It's Kent Swanson. You can find him on KC Sports Network, like we mentioned here, and you might see Jake Morley there once or twice. Guys, I know it's kind of hard to do this show, and it's, the first one, you always want to start with a bang, and Green Bay just isn't drafting a quarterback on the higher end of things. If we had done this show in 2019 when they did take Jordan Love, then we could have said, oh, maybe it was possible, if Herbert falls, if Jordan Love is there, somebody like that. But my question to you, Jake, is if Green Bay does trade Aaron Rodgers, I got True North Packers fan saying he's glad Green Bay is not drafting a potential quarterback replacement. And somewhere earlier in the chat, they were talking about if they'd go like the Brian Brom route. And that's what I want to ask you is if Jordan Love is the designated starter and Green Bay trades Rodgers to Denver, just to say, because apparently he said, we'll see. Although I have yet to see anything on any of those videos that is him audibly saying, we'll see when somebody says,
wait, what?
So Aaron Rodgers was playing
this?
golf. So Aaron Rodgers was playing golf today. And allegedly in Phoenix, somebody said, Aaron, come to Denver. And his response was, we'll see. Maybe I'm deaf, certainly possible, but I did not hear that when he was talking about that. So I don't know. But nonetheless, my question off of that is if Jordan Love is the presumed starter, do they or could they go the Brian Brom route? And just to rewind for everybody, because Brian Brom stunk.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a lot of Brian Broms in this draft class.
Well, the thing about Brom was, if you guys remember, if he had come out before his junior season, he might have been the number one overall pick, but he stayed for his senior year, wasn't as good. And then they took him in the second round when this is where Peter Bukowski talked about this yesterday. Some of the revisionist history about this situation just bothers me, where people are like, oh, Green Bay knew how good Rodgers was. And it's like, well, no, they didn't, because they took Brian Brom in with a top 60 pick
and Flynn
in the draft.
And Matt Flynn.
And Matt Flynn in the same draft. Not just that, but here's the other part that bothers me, and I will let you talk after I get to this point. When they're like, oh, the plan all along with Rodgers was to let Favre play those 2 or 3 years, and then it was Aaron, and he was just always going to play. That is not true. It's not, because Green Bay loses the NFC Championship game with Favre. Favre retires in March. Favre calls the Packers in May and says, hey, I think I made a mistake. I want to come back. They reportedly, and this is Peter King, it's not just some random slapdick like me throwing this crap out there for nothing. And I had this confirmed to me by the Packers PR guy when I was in college. They flew to Green Bay or to Mississippi. While they were on the plane, Favre called them and left them a voicemail and said, hey, never mind. You guys can just stay in Green Bay. I'm not coming back. But they were going to announce that he was coming back. If Favre is coming back that year, Rodgers never plays a snap for the Green Bay Packers. Not one. So the plan wasn't always to play him. And that's where, who am I to question Andrew Brandt? I say that full out. He's way smarter than I will ever be. But the plan doesn't always not account for variable change. This idea that Green Bay took Jordan Love on draft night 2020 and said in 2022, he's our starter no matter what happens the next 2 years. If they did that, every single person involved with that decision needs to be fired, because what is the only thing Aaron Rodgers could have done to not change their mind about that is win 2 Super Bowls these last 2 years. If they had done that, maybe Aaron retires, but if they had done that, that's the only thing that makes his resume bulletproof for the last 2 years since they had Jordan Love. 2 MVPs, the best player in the sport, 13 wins. And I say all that saying I would trade him now. And I understand how stupid this sounds when I throw it all out here like this. But if they had won 2 Super Bowls and Green Bay was just like, fuck it, we're trading him because that was always our plan, that's horrible. Anyways, Jake, my question off of that was, can you see Green Bay, if Jordan Love is a starter, doing a Brian Brom type of thing? Iowa Joe seems to think they could take someone later like they did Matt Flynn. And I think they might do that regardless, because if Rodgers is here, Love might not be, so they'll draft somebody while Bankert is the backup for a year or 2.
I was going to say, I think you got to take Bankert into the conversation. I think they like him a lot, and I think Bankert kind of is your Matt Flynn type guy that's been around, that knows the system, kind of the savvy vet. That
maybe an athlete type guy, mobile,
so and that
Hill type.
That guy to me, not athlete, but tools is Carson Strong, the Nevada kid. because I know there's some concerns about like his knee and stuff like that. But as far as just like arm talent goes, he's got it. Like he's got it, you know? So like a guy like that in the middle of the draft, you want to say like, hey, we like Jordan Love. We like him a lot. Let's take another young guy and let's take a flyer on him. That would be the guy. That would be the guy that I'd throw a dart on. You know, I would take my lottery ticket, if you will, and say like, hey, if this guy hits, he could be really good. But other than that, you know, like deeper in this draft class, I don't know. Like the guy, EJ Pear, who's the guy that Kent just brought up? That guy sounds good. Bring him, take him in the 7th. You know, like whatever.
Yeah, you can get a couple of those things going on. My other question I have to you before we close out here, we have one more thing at the end, but I looked at some of these teams with 2 first-round picks. So the Giants, the Jets aren't taking a quarterback. The Lions have 2 first-round picks. The Eagles have 3 first-round picks, which is just wild to me that that's a thing. Miami has a couple. Actually, Miami doesn't have a couple. They traded the one to Philly, so they only have the one from San Francisco. But Detroit, could a team maybe that has 2 first-round picks view that at the way and you could say this is right, you could say this is wrong. When everybody bagged on Jacksonville last year for taking Travis Etienne in the first round, I wondered if they just viewed that pick as a bonus pick so they could kind of ignore positional value and just kind of throw that to the wind and just say, we just want a guy that we really, really like. Like Green Bay did that. They didn't throw positional value to the wind, but they took Darnell Savage when they had their 2 first-round picks that year. When they also took my son, that everybody said sucked, and he's really good. It's Rashawn Gary. Thank you, everybody. He's our best player on defense. Thank you very much for that. Shout out to Nick Scheib. He was one of the only people I know that really loved that pick at the time. Nonetheless, could you see a team maybe talking themselves into someone like Kenny Pickett, Desmond Ritter, somebody like that in the first round, if they have that second first-round pick and are like, okay, so I'm Detroit. I got Aiden Hutchinson at 2, which is stupid if that happens because Jacksonville should pick him, but whatever. Now I can take a quarterback and hope that, and if honestly, you can even do that. And even if he stinks, then you can be like, hey, if we're in this position next year and we didn't think Desmond Ritter was any good and we got a chance to draft Bryce Young, we do.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think Detroit is an interesting conversation because they have Jared Goff. Right. And Jared Goff is basically like, I think Kenny Pickett or Ritter hitting is Jared Goff. Right. Like you're like, all right, let's draft a young guy who could someday develop into Jared Goff. Like that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So like for Detroit, I could see them doing it if a guy like Malik Willis is there at the end of the first, a guy that just like has the tools and maybe even like a Sam Howell, Sam Howell, I think, or a Corral. I think those guys have a little bit more live arm and a little bit more athletic than maybe Pickett or Ritter. But like, I don't know, man. Like I would not bet the house on any of those guys, which I know is to your point of like, well, you're not because they had this whole, they got their second round pick. So there are the second overall pick. So I wouldn't if I were them, but bad teams stay bad for a reason. And maybe they do that and they view it as a bonus pick when they could just go out and try to build something around Goff. And if they stink again next year, then take your quarterback and try to put them into an offense or a team that is more well equipped to win games with a stud as opposed to kind of a placeholder. Like, don't draft a placeholder. Just you have yours already, and suck, like whatever. So I don't know. Because Philly's not going to take quarterback, right? I wouldn't think they would.
They should. Well, here, as a pseudo Eagles fan, which I am now, the Eagles should be trading those picks for Russell Wilson. So to my beloved birds, go get Mr. Unlimited because Jalen Hurts ain't it. So that's what I would be doing. But you're right. I think those teams in general, I just wondered if that was something maybe a team could talk themselves into. Jacksonville with Trent Baalke and the incompetent boob that was Urban Meyer, maybe not being the greatest example of that. So Jake, at this show, we are going to ascribe to the theory that the draft is 5 rounds long and anything after that is a flyer, preferred undrafted free agent, stuff like that. My question to you.
That's correct. That's correct. So what you just laid out is absolutely correct. Some would even say the 4th round, but I'm a 5-round guy. I'm a 5-round guy myself.
I am a 5-round guy as well. Depends on the class, but I am a 5-round guy as well. So my question to you is not what percentage Green Bay takes a quarterback, because I think those percentages are pretty low, and I think we would agree on that. But instead, is the percentage chance higher that Green Bay takes a quarterback in this draft or a kicker?
Kicker. They're going to take a kicker. I promise you, they're going to take a kicker. Dicker, the kicker, is going to be a Packer. Think about it.
I'm rooting for Jake Moody, but
The Packer Goody has taken every other specialist except a kicker. Why wouldn't he? Like, why would
it
he
hasn't
not?
work's just throwing that one out there.
It
It
has
didn't work.
Third time's a charm, baby. Third time's a charm. I think I think kicker is the higher percentage that they take here. I think Rodgers is going to be back. Love will be back. Banker's going to be back. I think they have 3 guys that they, at least one on the roster, and I do think, as much as I love Mason Crosby, I didn't love holding my breath every time he kicked the field goal the second half of the season and having my heart broken. I know it wasn't really his fault that it got blocked, but I feel like it was, even though it's not. But I'm ready. I'm just ready. Mason has been great, but he's expensive. So unless he gets cut and comes back on a super cheap deal because he wants the Rodgers rate, he goes with the Rodgers rate. JJ Molson's interesting. I'm gonna talk about that in a second. But unless he goes with the Rodgers rate and comes back for nothing, he ain't gonna be back next year in Green Bay. JJ Molson was on the practice squad all season, right? And we like to point to that and say, hey, JJ Molson, they really like this kid. They really like this kid, and they might really like him. I'm not throwing that out. But let's also keep in mind, almost every team kept a kicker on the practice squad this year. For
COVID, it makes sense.
COVID, I don't know. You've heard of COVID, right?
Yeah.
So
what is it? I heard it was fake. Is it fake?
Maybe Dr. Joe Rogan will tell you a thing or two. If Mason got sick, they had their guy. They had their guy ready to go in and kick, right? I think that was it more than anything. But if you're saying, apparently Canadians love Molson, so he's kicked in the snow. We got to get Labo on here, man, or Lobo. How do you say it?
Labo. And Ben. I've invited Ben 4 times onto these fucking things, and he just refuses to do it. So Ben,
are you real? Are you a real person?
I'm begging you. To come on one of these shows, please. I'm asking as nicely as I can.
Let's get him on during the special teams, because we got to have a special teams episode this year. We're gonna have to have one.
Almost feels like we do, yeah.
And then you come on, you're going to tell us about, get your JJ Molson scouting report ready to roll.
Well, there's that. He's a bot.
I want it. Figured he's too nice. He's too
to
nice.
Me,
he comes to all of our stuff.
Yeah, no kidding. Mine is also kicker. The one thing I will say about JJ Molson is you said, they like him. They kept him on the practice. And I've said that too. But they also really liked Dave Rayner, and they still drafted Mason Crosby. Now, granted, that was a different general manager, a different time frame, all that stuff. My thing with Crosby is this. If the special teams are going to suck, and maybe they won't, maybe Richie Bisaccia will fix some things. I would certainly like to think so. But if he doesn't, I'm okay with a kicker playing for the vet minimum and having his kicks blocked as opposed to Mason Crosby. If you're going to make $3, $4, $5 million, if I'm paying a kicker who I don't even consider a football player that much money, I need you to be Justin Tucker and basically automatic. And he wasn't. Even when Crosby wasn't getting his kicks blocked, he wasn't automatic. He had a stretch during the season. Now you could say maybe the blocking was in his head. You could say all kinds of stuff. I hope Mason retires. If not, I would cut him and sign a kicker for the vet minimum. Like my guy True North said, please Crosby retire. Yes, I am asking, please retire, because I don't want the team to have to cut you. I understand. I've actually talked to Mason Crosby a couple different times. He was always nice to me, so I'm appreciative of that. But like you said, Jake, every time he went on the field, I held my breath. Either that the kick was going to be blocked or he just might flat freaking miss it. And he did a lot. And he missed and got a lot of kicks blocked this year, including in the playoff game. And that cost the Packers a chance to play in a game that could have gotten them to the Super Bowl against a team they had already beaten. So I am also with you. I am on kicker. I know Dicker, the kicker, is going to be the popular one. I love Jake Moody. He's a Michigan guy. He was the specialist of the year. He was automatic for a Michigan team that has had as many kicker issues in recent years as I can remember. And Moody was money in the bank. So I am for Jake. And he's kicked in Nicole. He kicked in Ann Arbor. And Dicker, the kicker, I believe he was a Texas guy.
Texas,
I know who he is.
Got a big old leg, though. I think he'd kick in the snow. But you never know. You never really know until you're there. I mean, and Lambeau is the wind and stuff. So, maybe.
Yeah, and the wind swirls down in there, and it's weird. And you see Crosby, they're not just standing on the sideline kicking. They're trying to figure out what way the wind's going. How do I aim appropriately? All that good stuff. We're out of time, guys. We've gone too long. I appreciate you guys stopping in for the quarterback show. I did have Mark ask, when is the wide receiver for draft preview? That'll be in 2 weeks. So next week, we're going to talk running backs. We're going to talk that with Corey Seeley and a guest to be named later for the wide receivers show here in a couple of weeks. But that'll probably be one more interesting and maybe run a little bit longer just because there's going to be more guys to talk about. And it's a sexy position. So good point out here. You're right, Mark. Justin Tucker did go to Texas, and he's the greatest kicker of all time, maybe other than Adam Vinatieri. So kudos on that. Good little tidbit there. But thank you guys for stopping by. You can follow me. I'm on Twitter at Jacob Westendorf. You can follow Jake. He's on Twitter at Jake. Sorry. You can follow him on Twitter. He's at Jacob Morley. We will be back next week, like I mentioned, with Corey Seeley of NFL Draft Scout. And the other thing I do want to mention, go to Game On Wisconsin. Check our bio out. In the bio, there is a link to our merch page. And within that merch page, there is a t-shirt memorial for my dad. My dad obviously tragically passed away a couple of weeks ago. His funeral was 1 week ago today. 100%. I do not make a cent on this. Nobody from Game On Wisconsin does. Nobody anywhere else does. 100% of these proceeds go to his memorial, which is for the local baseball diamond. I've already bought a couple of shirts, obviously, because I wanted them. I designed them, but you guys feel free to purchase them as well. If you do not want to purchase a t-shirt, but still want to donate to the memorial, follow me on Twitter, shoot me a message. I will let you know how to donate, and I will send you a picture personally when I send the check to Rockford Pony Baseball. But until then, I appreciate you guys stopping in, and I promise that might be the last time I mention my dad this offseason. Maybe it won't be. I don't know. My dad was Superman, so I can do whatever the hell I want. This is my show. But thanks to Jake Morley, to Kent Swanson, for myself. We'll see you guys next week.